Chapter 89, I'm the strongest. Now, do you have something to say to me? Yang Monli approached Han Sen, who was standing like a statue. Han Sen hadn't reached a certain level in jade skin, so his fatigue wasn't cleared away completely. Having stood there for over 3 hours, he was drenched in sweat. Even so, his stance was still firm as ever and his hands holding the bow didn't even tremble. Yang Monli for the first time felt that maybe Han Sen was somewhat talented. He had been standing like that for more than 3 hours and his hands were still steady, which was a great quality for an archer. "Captain, I really have nothing to say," Han Sen said. "Well, since you are so tough, you could keep standing here." Yang Monli went away without looking back. She was a little angry, but also respected Han Sen for what he did. That was a difficult task for a 16-year-old. She herself could only last 2 hours with a 6.0 bow at his age. After Yang Monli had closely observed Han Sen's situation and made sure he was fine, she was surprised to see that he did have the energy to continue. Although this was a test of endurance, and didn't have much to do with his other qualities, it still showed that Han Sen was outstanding in something, as someone with a fitness index less than 10 wasn't likely to last this long. How can he have such strong endurance? Yang Monli thought she probably couldn't even accomplish this herself, while Han Sen, someone with much worse fitness than she, could pull through. After Yang Monli went back to the office, she continued to monitor Han Senator. On one hand, she wanted to find out how long Han Sen could last in the end. On the other hand, she was afraid his arms would be damaged. She did not want Han Sen on her team, but she did not mean to harm him either. That was why she couldn't let anything happen to him. Not to mention she had started to appreciate his endurance and perseverance. As for Han Sen's answer, in fact, Yang Monli did not really want to hear it. If Han Sen had really confessed, Yang Monli would have thought he was a snitch. Before long, the soldiers took some water and food and sneaked back into the gym. "Brother, great job. Come and drink some nutrition solution to get some strength." A soldier opened a bottle of nutrient solution and lifted it to Han Sen's lips. "Eat something. Although this meat is as good as the meat from God's sanctuary, it was cooked by a chef here and the taste is good." Another soldier held a large piece of barbecue on a fork and put it up to Han Sen's mouth. "It's fine. I only have 1 hour left and must satisfy Yang's demand." "I am afraid she would say it doesn't count if you help me," Han Sen said. "Brother, you are really a tough guy. I don't admire anyone but you." "Right, what is your name?" "Han Sr. You are just over 16, right?" "Haven't had my 17th birthday. Are all kids so tough these days?" "I do not know about others, but I'm definitely the toughest." "Do not talk to him anymore. It consumes his energy." The soldiers saw Han Sen was fine and set up a table next to him to play cards. Han Sen was upset and thought, "You animals. Are you trying to help or piss me off?" Han Sen had been standing there for more than 4 hours. The soldiers watched the clock turning to 1 second past midnight, put the cards down, took the bow over and raised Han Sen up, ready to throw him into the hydro massage machine. "Don't. I do not need the massage. It's too late now. I have to go home." Han Sen quickly waved his hands. He had seen this kind of machine before, and it would take at least an hour before he could get out. He did not want to waste his time here. "That is not okay. You have been stretching your muscles for too long, which could severely harm your body. You must fully relax through the massage so that your veins and muscles could be revitalized. You have to stay in it for at least 3 hours with the strongest mode on," said a soldier seriously. "I'm all right." Han Sen couldn't really wait 3 hours. As the soldiers insisted, he used a technique from Ghost Haunt and grabbed a soldier's neck. With a twist, he wiggled free like a snake. "Brothers, I'm really okay. I have to go home now. If you don't believe me, I will show you that I still have the energy to perform military boxing." Han-sen said, and performed the complete set of military boxing. Military boxing was something taught at the integrated compulsory education, and was something as simple as gymnastics. But all the soldiers were dumbfounded by it. They watched Han-sen as if they had seen a ghost. *T. Kid, you must be a monster under the human skin, the soldiers suddenly shouted when Han-sen finished the military boxing. A Shura under the human skin. A perpetual motion machine under the human skin. When Han-sen left the teleport station, it was 1 o'clock in the morning. His mother and sister weren't home, so he cooked himself something to fill his stomach and went to bed. Although Han-sen's body was fine, he did feel rather tired and almost fell asleep immediately. He didn't get up until it was noon. Han-sen stretched and felt very good all over. It was as if all his cells and pores were revitalized. He discovered that he had made great progress in jade skin. Although it was still just a little, it was about the effect of 10 days practice. So jade skin is practiced more efficiently under extreme conditions? Han-sen was surprised. It was worth a shot anyway. If it was true, it would be great for his practice of jade skin. Han-sen was not in a hurry. He had lots of time to train in the gravity trainer in the future. If he didn't do it, young Monli would make him anyway. Han-sen had carefully thought about his current situation. It would still be a while until he could become an aristocrat, and it was not a bad thing to join Qin Xian's squad to gain protection for his family. As Qin Xian had said, if Son of Heaven wanted to harm his family, there wasn't really much he could do even if he was home. The military's protection was more reliable. Son of Heaven was careful with Qin Xian in God's sanctuary, so Han-sen believed that Qin Xian's background would deter Son of Heaven. As long as Son of Heaven didn't know he was dollar, Han-sen didn't think the guy would risk offending the military force for some small conflict. Chapter 90, Hand of God. On the next day, Han-sen brought porns to the soldier who had asked him for them. The soldier was so happy that he wanted to become sworn brothers with Han-sen and said Han-sen would be responsible for his happiness from now on. Han-sen was covered in sweat. Fortunately, young Monli came fast enough so that Han-sen got rid of the soldier successfully. Young Monli spent half an hour to explain some archery knowledge and gave Han-sen a few tasks to finish on his own. Han-sen had learned basic archery knowledge at school, and what Yang taught him was more practical, which benefited him a lot. Yang was indeed an expert. There were a lot of tasks for him to complete, which included the gravity trainer. Han-sen wanted to use the gravity trainer himself. This time he used the protection mechanism to adjust the parameters, not to reduce the gravity, but to increase the gravity a notch so that it suited his real fitness level better. The gym did not seem to be the place where ordinary soldiers trained. Han-sen had never seen other soldiers here than the ones he talked to. During lunch break, Han-sen was chatting with the soldiers he knew. The soldier who asked Han-sen for porns regarded Han-sen and asked, "Sen, in addition to bow and arrows, what other weapons do you use?" "Dagger." Han-sen showed him the Z-steel dagger. Han-sen only knew the nicknames of these soldiers. This guy's name was Gambler. Han-sen learned from others that he was greedy and lewd. Gambler took over Han-sen's dagger and played with it. The dagger seemed like a living thing in his hand, making dazzling moves like a snake. "Watch this." Gambler held the dagger an inch away from Han-sen's eyes. With a simple wave of his hand, the dagger disappeared in front of Han-sen and Gambler's hand was empty. *T. Your nickname should be Magician. Han-sen looked everywhere and didn't see the dagger. Gambler laughed and shook his hands in front of Han-senator. He curled his fingers and the dagger returned to his hands magically. "How did you do that?" Han-sen widened his eyes. "Pretty cool, huh?" Gambler asked proudly. "Yep." Han-sen quickly nodded. "Dazzling, no?" Gambler played with the dagger. "For sure." Han-sen nodded again. "Want to learn?" Gambler looked at Han Sen with a faint smile. I do. Do you want to teach me? Han Sen asked. If you can bring me all my girls' new movies, I will teach you. Gambler said with a smile. No problem. Han Sen agreed, knowing the girls Gambler referred to were certain porn stars. Although it cost some money to buy new movies, Han Sen really wanted to learn these tricks. Come, we will find a place so that I can show you. Gambler took Han Sen aside and told him the key to it. Han Sen then found out that it was not really magic but finger tricks. Although it was taking advantage of the blind spots, the most important part was one's control of the muscles on the arm. Yes, it was the entire arm instead of just the hand. Gambler told him that this trick was called heaven in sleeves, also known as sleeve blade. It was passed down in his family as the foundation of their family business. The dirk Gambler used was specially made. Thin and sharp, it had a crescent-like double-edged blade but no hilt. Gambler was playing with one dirk in each hand, and it looked like there were two butterflies dancing around his hands, which was amazing to watch. How long will it take for me to become a master like you? Han Sen looked at Gambler enviously. Gambler smiled. I started at the age of 3, and became better at 7. I'm now intermediate and still far from being a master. He gave the dagger back to Han Sen and said, do not underestimate this trick. Although it is just lays the foundation, but it is fundamental and will benefit you for the rest of your life. Gambler, what does your family do? Han Sen could not help but ask. Aha, you will never be in our business and I do not intend to let you. I'm just showing you a trick. You could practice it if you think it is fun. Never mind other issues. Gambler walked away and turned back to ask Han Sen, have you ever played games on the Skynet? Rarely. Han Sen had spent all his time trying to survive, and had no time for games. Go play Hand of God. It will help you learn this trick. If you can level up in that game, you will be getting somewhere with this trick. Gambler pointed to the holographic training machine. Han Sen was very interested in Sleeve Blade, so he went to check out Hand of God on the holographic training machine. Soon he understood why Gambler asked him to play this game. This was a holographic game. Its idea was like whack-a-mole, but instead of using fingers alone, the spots to touch could appear everywhere around one's arms. One must use all muscles rationally to hit all the spots to pass a level. It was highly demanding for one's dexterity and accuracy. In addition to the beginner level, the game was divided into 3 levels: Evolver, Surpass and Demigod. The intention of the classification was obviously to correspond with the 3 phases of God's sanctuary, and to guide players to choose the right level. Han Sen first chose the beginner level. Actually, when Gambler said, level up, he meant to clear the beginner level. As for which level Gambler himself was in, Han Sen had no way of knowing. Soon, Han Sen was hooked. He was not that smooth in the beginning, but was soon addicted to the satisfaction gained from hitting rapidly as he got familiar with the game. Faster, faster, faster. Once started, the game would push one to pursue the exhilaration in speeding up. But Han Sen did not have much time to play this game. After a few rounds in the martial arts contest, Han Sen reached the final match as expected. Not sure it was good luck or bad luck, Han Sen didn't encounter either Fist Guy or Son of Heaven. Son of Heaven had eliminated Fist Guy, and Qin Xian had eliminated Son of Heaven. The final match was between Qin Xian and Han Sen. In fact, Han Sen wanted to fight Son of Heaven more, so that he would have the opportunity to kill Son of Heaven on the stage. Usually the young master was surrounded by many strong men and there was almost no chance for Han Sen to approach him. Chapter 91, Steel Armor Championship. On the day of the final match between Dollar and Qin Xian, the stands were packed with at least 100,000 audience. Even many of those who didn't register came. In addition to it being the final match, it was popular also thanks to the fame of Dollar and Qin Xian. Qin Xian was undoubtedly the legend of Steel Armor Shelter. As a woman, she had been the champion of the martial arts contest for several years now, although she was never among the chosen. There was no doubt that she was the number one in steel armor shelter. In addition, she was also beautiful. All of these made her the goddess of steel armor shelter. People loved, feared, and respected her. Dollar's recent rise was even more legendary. He came from nowhere, but there had been so many headlines and controversies about him. Both seizing Son of Heaven's sacred blood beast soul and killing Luo Tianyang made Dollar a somewhat negative figure. But smashing through the robot channel and fighting Goldenhorn Shura made him an idol. When one legend met the other, everyone wanted to know about the outcome. Will Qin Xian continue to be the invincible goddess? Or will Dollar become the new champion? Everyone was looking forward to this match. When Qin Xian and Dollar almost arrived at the same time, all expectations peaked and the cheers were deafening. Dollar, a bet? Qin Xian didn't move, but looked at Han Sen with a smile. The audience heard Qin Xian's words and quieted down, wanting to know what bet she was proposing. What bet? Though looking calm, Han Sen was puzzled. Did she want to buy the victory from him? If you lose this one, join my steel armor gang and be my deputy. When I evolve and go to Second God's Sanctuary, you will be the head of the gang. Qin Xian had a sweet smile on. There was an uproar among the audience. No one thought Qin Xian would say something like this. Steel Armor Gang was far more than just a gang. It also represented the presence of military and the alliance in God's sanctuary. Qin Xian was asking Dollar to become the official spokesman of the alliance at Steel Armor Shelter. It was a great honor. Sorry, I cannot accept this condition. But unexpectedly, Dollar refused Qin Xian's offer. Why? Qin Xian looked at Han Sen, stunned. The head of Steel Armor Gang was a position pursued by many. It was a ladder toward the power center of the alliance, but Dollar turned it down without considering. The audience also thought Dollar was crazy. How can he turn down such a great offer? There are two reasons, Han Sen smiled and said. First, you cannot beat me. The answer left many slightly shocked, while Qin Xian asked, what is the second reason? I will go to Second God's Sanctuary earlier than you, so although I appreciate your kindness, I can't take your offer, Han Sen calmly said. His reply was arrogant. With her gang, Qin Xian could gain Geno points a lot more easily than most people. While Dollar was on his own, he said he could evolve earlier than her. But no one felt that Dollar was mistaken. It seemed that everything was likely with Dollar and he shouldn't be questioned. Qin Xian smiled. Well, then I would like to propose something else. If you lose, tell me who you really are. Qin Xian's words had led to a burst of cheers on the stands. All the audience were dying to know who Dollar was. Qin Xian's proposal was embraced by all. And if you lose? Han Sen grinned and asked. You can propose something as well. Smiling, Qin Xian looked full of confidence. It was as if she would never lose. An S-Class license at St. Hall. Han Sen was obsessed with the hyper-Geno arts in St. Hall. He had neither the money nor the license. Deal. Qin Xian did not even lift her eyes before she agreed, as if an S-Class license was nothing to her. Then let's begin. Han Sen drew the Shura katana. He didn't dare to slack when fighting Qin Xian, who had the most Geno points among all in the shelter. She was probably 10 sacred Geno points away from maxing out on everything. Han Sen had never seen Qin Xian using her full strength, but he still thought he stood a chance. Han Sen's biggest advantage was his understanding of Qin Xian. She would never thought that Dollar was in fact Han Sen, whom she had fought 1,000,000 times. Although she was always kicking his ass, he had learned a lot of her fighting habits. Qin Xian on the other hand knew nothing about Dollar. Qin Xian stretched her hand and a beautiful purple butterfly started to dance in her palm, which turned into a purple dagger. Elegant and demure, she stood there like a goddess. Han Sen had seen her using this sacred blood poisonous butterfly dagger once, but it was on the purple-winged dragon. The dagger wasn't really effective as the dragon was gigantic. However, it would be different for a person. Han Sen didn't know if he could stand the toxin if stabbed with the dagger. So, Han Sen wasn't going to give Qin Xian any opportunity to attack. He wielded the katana using blade storm, and the strike was so fast as if it could break the wind. It was a similar strike as this one that had ended Luo Qianyang's life. Qin Xian smiled, and moved away like a butterfly, dodging the fierce strike and stabbed her dagger at Han Sen's throat. Han Sen stepped forward and ignored the dagger. The katana was wielded at Qin Xian again. That was a move that put both their lives at stake. If Qin Xian did not dodge again, she would be cut in half. Since Han Sen was in sacred blood armor, he had a bigger chance at survival even cut by her sacred blood dagger. Scoundrel, Qin Xian scowled, gracefully moved sideways and avoided Han Sen's attack. Chapter 92, Atomic Fission. Han Sen was thrilled to see Qin Xian moving away. A storm of katana strikes poured on the lady as blade storm was fully brought into play. Each strike was faster than the last. Qin Xian was forced to defend herself and had no chance to attack. Han Sen knew well that Qin Xian was nimble. He had been practicing Ghost Haunt for a long time now and had improved a lot on his footwork. However, he had never been able to get close to her in any combat except for the first time when she had underestimated him. Sure enough, Qin calmly dodged all the strikes Han Sen made calmly as if she were dancing. Meanwhile she fought back from time to time with grace. None of it mattered to Han Senator. He hacked the katana at her regardless and worked both Blade Storm and Jade Skin to the maximum. A coolness gushed in his veins like a spring and activated every cell in his body. Qin Xian quietly warded off all attacks from Han Senator. She was very confident in herself. It took her a few years to finally get to the first stage of atomic fission. With her current Geno points and beast souls, Qin Xian believed that she could become the chosen this year, and even the first place was not impossible. Atomic fission was an advanced hyper-Geno art, which could fortify all body parts. As suggested by its name, it was close to the root of all hyper-Geno arts and could produce long-lasting power that improved one's physique significantly. It would be the perfect hyper-Geno art if it wasn't so difficult to get started. Qin Xian had started to practice atomic fission under her family members' guidance since she was a toddler, but her progress had been slow. Now she had practiced it for 2 decades and she just got to the first stage a few months ago. Yes, just the first stage. But she had made a leap in her strength already with the first stage. 20 years of practice did not go wasted. Once she got somewhere, her improvement was skyrocketing. Even Son of Heaven, who was on the same level as she, was easily defeated by her this year. It wasn't that Son of Heaven was weak, but that she had become too strong after getting to the first stage of atomic fission. Qin Xian believed that she could definitely reach the top this year and dollar wouldn't be an issue. Qin Xian wasn't even thinking about winning or losing, but how to win dollar to better impress him. Qin Xian did not care about the storm of blades. As fierce as it looked, it couldn't hurt her. She only felt it was a bit troublesome as she didn't want to kill dollar. If you like driving, I'll let you drive. I will wait until you are so completely exhausted that you can't even move your arm. By then I will still be calm and appreciate your despair. Qin Xian smiled and dodged another strike, thinking, as long as you lose to me this way, you will think I am invincible and never dare to fight me again. Qin Xian intended to burn Han Sen out. The way Han Sen wielded his katana would consume his strength fast. Each strike brought all his potentials out at the cost of his stamina. For Qin Xian's atomic fission, stamina was one of its key strengths. A metaphor would be that a nuclear power plant was much more efficient than a coal-fired power plant. As Qin Xian kept avoiding Han Sen's attacks, she was patiently waiting for him to be worn down. The blood of the audience were set afire. Han Sen's katana was swift and fierce, and Qin Xian's dancing was ethereal and elegant. their movements were so fast that they became a blur. It was indeed a great match. And in the eyes of ordinary people, Han Sen was chasing Qin Xian and seemed to have the upper hand. Cheers of "dollar" could be heard from time to time. It seems that the champion in steel armor shelter would be someone else this year. Of course, dollar is absolutely invincible. Haha, men are the master of this world. Tremble, women. Young Monli curled her lips with disdain, looking like a goddess who didn't deign to argue with the mortals. Son of Heaven was even more scornful. He had experienced how strong Qin Xian was. He had always known about atomic fission. If he had wanted to learn it, he could have. But as it took at least 2 decades for someone talented to get to the first stage, he chose not to. Indeed, everyone knew that this was a great hyper-geno art, but few dared to practice it. No one wanted to put 2 decades into a higher geno art that they didn't know would work or not. If one failed, one would not even have a chance to start over with a different hyper-geno art. Son of Heaven hadn't had the courage to practice atomic fission, and regretted it now that he saw how well Qin Xian was doing. Son of Heaven, it looks like Qin Xian was in trouble. She was continuously under attack, a young man in Son of Heaven's gang said nervously. Son of Heaven twitched his mouth and replied, "What do you know? Qin Xian has got to the first stage of atomic fission and she is basically impossible to beat. Although Dollar was attacking, he will soon lose his strength to even lift the katana. His loss would be miserable. So that's what it is. How experienced and knowledgeable you are." The young man quickly kissed up to him. But next to them, another young man commented abruptly, "Keep silent if you don't understand it. Don't you have any common sense? Men are simply stronger than women, and it will be Qin Xian who is worn down first." Son of Heaven was provoked to wrath, but he paused when he saw the young man's face. It was the young master named Qing who had once hired Han Sen as his bodyguard. Yuan and the rest of the group were also there. Qing, Son of Heaven, gave a hollow laugh and explained, "There are differences between men and women. But those differences were negligible. Dollar's stamina is far worse than that of Qin Xian who had reached the first stage in atomic fission. I believe in half an hour, Dollar wouldn't even be able to wield his katana. How come I can't see that?" Qing was not convinced and said, "My father told me that women are inferior to men. I know that Dollar will win and that woman will definitely lose." Son of Heaven smiled with confidence. "Qing, no need to debate. We will see what happens in half an hour. You will find out who is right at that time." Chapter 93, Better Stamina. But half an hour later, Son of Heaven's face became a bit stiff as Han Sen was still fiercely brandishing the katana at the same speed. "Son of Heaven, didn't you say that Dollar would be worn out in half an hour? I'm telling you my dad was right. Men are better than women," Qing said proudly. Looking at Son of Heaven's grim face, Yuan smiled and did not speak. Son of Heaven was really upset. According to common sense, Dollar would not last half an hour. With that kind of strikes, few in First God's Sanctuary could. Ahem. It seems that Dollar has practiced some special hyper-geno art that improves his stamina. Even so, he couldn't possibly last an hour. In another half an hour, he would be worn down. Son of Heaven wanted to restore some authority of his. "Son of Heaven, you are a guy. Why do you keep cheering for a woman? My dad says that men are the best. I think Dollar must be better than that woman. You have no vision." Qing obviously did not agree with Son of Heaven's argument. Son of Heaven almost choked. Pretending to be calm, he said, "Qing, if you don't believe me, keep on watching. In half an hour, you will know who is right. I'm just stating the fact here. Is there any need to watch? Dollar will certainly have no problem. He killed a golden-horned Shura. Why will he lose to a woman?" Qing said with open worship in his eyes. Son of Heaven did not say anything, considering argument with such a kid unnecessary. In a while the kid will see what is good judgment. But another half an hour had passed, and Dollar's spirit was still high. There was no sign of him burning out at all, which made Son of Heaven uncomfortable as if he had just swallowed a fly. Ching was very pleased and patted Son of Heaven on the shoulder. Son of Heaven, what did I tell you? Men can't be weaker than women. A man that can't beat a woman is not a man. It's been an hour and Dollar is still fierce. I believe that woman will be beat in a while. You need to learn from me so that you can have better judgment. Remember to take men's side instead of women's. Son of Heaven was seething with anger. He pretended not having heard Ching and kept silent. Right, Son of Heaven, why didn't you enter the final? Who did you lose to? Dollar? Ching wasn't even aware of Son of Heaven's emotions and kept asking him. How could I lose to that guy? Son of Heaven immediately said coldly. Who did you lose to then? Ching asked. Son of Heaven felt his own face was burning. He lost to the woman on the stage, but it wasn't time to tell Ching that. Knowing that Son of Heaven had lost to Qin Xuan, Yuan almost laughed out loud. He pulled the sleeve of Ching and asked, Are you here to talk or to watch the game? It's only fun to discuss the game while we watch, Ching retorted. Fun for you. Son of Heaven was about to be set on fire. Yuan glanced at Son of Heaven's sullen face and thought. Displeased, Son of Heaven felt strange. Dollar has been wielding the weapon so fiercely that it's impossible for him to keep going for such a long time. Unless he has also practiced atomic fission. Other than Son of Heaven, Qin Xian felt something was off as well. Attacking at such a high speed, Dollar had sustained way longer than she had expected, making her alarmed and surprised. In such a high-intensity duel, even she had begun to feel a little tired. Dollar, however, seemed to feel nothing and kept attacking with the katana swiftly, as if he could do this forever, giving birth to a trace of powerlessness in Qin Xian's mind. No, I cannot go on like this. He must have also practiced some hyper-geno art that enhances his stamina. Maybe I will be the one who is worn out first. Qin Xian gritted her teeth and dodged another strike. She took back her dagger and two beast souls appeared in the air. One beast soul was the mutant golden lion that she had always used. She instantaneously shape-shifted into a magnificent golden lion. And the other beast soul was a ball of blue liquid, which poured into the lion and turned its golden body blue. The lion also grew larger and looked fiercer. That is sacred blood water spirit. Qin Xian actually got its beast soul. Son of Heaven was shocked to see that. He knew very well how scary a sacred blood water spirit was. It could coexist with another creature and make that creature exceptionally strong. Qin Xian made the final attack to the water spirit when she was hunting it with Son of Heaven, who did not know she got the beast soul. It seemed that the beast soul had the same power as the creature it once belonged to. With the help of water spirit beast soul, the mutant golden lion had become stronger than normal sacred blood creatures. Qin Xian could then fully display the power of atomic fission. Son of Heaven was surprised. Qin Xian has become so strong. It seems that this year she could be among top 3 of the chosen. Han Sen knew Qin Xian really well. He glanced at her expression and knew something was off. Just before she summoned the water spirit beast soul, he summoned his wings and flew up high. Everyone was stunned, including Qin Xian. Who could have thought Dollar, who looked like he was going for mutual destruction, had flown away the minute Qin Xian shape-shifted? Qin Xian, who had shape-shifted, did not know what to do. These two beast souls were fierce enough for sure. Even Dollar used a sacred blood shape-shifting beast soul, she could beat him. She chose the moment when Han Sen was making the most powerful strikes to shape-shift so that he wouldn't disengage himself. She didn't have sacred blood wings, so she wanted to end the match as soon as possible. What she did not think of was that Dollar, who was chasing her, just flew away faster than rabbits. Qin Xian suddenly felt very embarrassed. As fierce as she was right now, she could not fly, and as a lion, she could no longer use weapons, so she couldn't even throw things at Han Sen.